Oh, welcome to a brand new episode of the Five Hole right here on the Variety Sports Network, brought to you by SeatGeek. SeatGeek finds your seats so fans can fan. You can get $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek with code VSN. And guys, welcome to the show tonight. It's gonna be a fun one. We get a nice little early preview. I'm just glad we didn't have to wait another game. Well, I wish we could have waited another game or two. For the Stanley Cup Final Preview Show. But hey, we're getting it tonight. Stanley Cup Final Preview Show between the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers. But let's talk about the conference finals first. Brandon, give me your quick thoughts on the Dallas Edmonton series and how you thought that was going to go. You a little surprised?
So originally I had thought this series was going to go in 5 in favor of Dallas after we saw the comeback from behind game. I believe that was in game 3.
Yeah.
Whenever they were down 2-0 and came back to win. I thought that with how I've usually seen Dallas come out and play like they did in that game, I figured that they were going to be continuing that on into the next couple of games. But, I mean, little did I know McDavid and Draisaitl and Hyman and all of the other Edmonton Oilers decided to actually play, including Stuart Skinner. Because the last few games he played out of his mind, and he played how he did throughout the course of the second half of the season for Edmonton Oilers. So, yeah, I was very much surprised that Edmonton came out and won this series. But, I mean, in a way I shouldn't have, because they have been playing very well throughout the course of the regular season, and then even against Vancouver and LA. So it shouldn't surprise me, but it did surprise me that Edmonton came out with the victory.
Yeah. I think I got a little shocked on my end too that series ended in 6 with Edmonton. And I shouldn't say that, because I said 3-4 weeks ago that the Edmonton Oilers are one of my favorites to win the Stanley Cup. So at the same time, I shouldn't say, well, I'm surprised to see the Oilers in the Stanley Cup. Not surprised necessarily, just a little shocked that series didn't go 7. James, what are your thoughts on the Oilers Stars?
Well, and honestly, the Oilers were my initial pick to go to the Stanley Cup, because I wanted to see them go to the, because it's been really hard to figure out what team I wanted to go since my Blues weren't in it, and I'm pretty much an anti-Central divisionist, so like no on anybody in the Central Division going to the Stanley Cup Finals. So I pretty much handpicked Oilers from the beginning, but watching that team play, and they have literally grown and matured through this whole playoff. They weren't just a one-dimensional team. They've played defense. Their goaltending came in, especially like they came alive in this Western Conference Final. Stuart Skinner played out of his mind after he was pulled from that one game, or after he didn't start that one game. After that, it was like it's been him. The defense shown up better than what they have been, and I mean, you cannot deny the fact that this team has an almost record-setting penalty killing. Like I think they're at 28 or something like that, and the record is actually like 39. So they got a ways to go before they set that record, but nonetheless, they've dominated. They've shown that they can win in a lot of different ways, not just the Connor McDavid show, the Leon Draisaitl show. They win as a team, and now they're one of the best playing teams. Well, remaining, of course, with them and the Panthers. So this, I was really impressed with how they played. I'm glad they made it. Not necessarily shocked, but very happy to see what happened. So
yeah. Jerry, do you got any thoughts on?
I was kind of wrapped up in my own series to pay attention to the West.
Yeah,
I'm sure we'll get into in a little bit.
Yep.
But I will say I'm genuinely surprised that the Oilers were able to make it this far, in my opinion, without steady goaltending. And I guess he's really not – you can't call him bad because he brought him to the Stanley Cup Final. But I always felt as if the Oilers are a complete team minus a goaltender. And in my opinion, I thought the goalie was always going to be the difference maker in a Stanley Cup winning team. maybe over reliant on that because we look at the Rangers and guess what happened? It didn't really work out for us. But with the star power, like you guys said, with McDavid and Draisaitl both showing up when it matters, that's all you can really ask for. Unfortunately, I do think they outmatched, in my opinion, that Dallas team just in terms of sheer star power, and they're answering the bell, which is again, we'll get into it when we talk about Rangers and Panthers and all that. But when your superstars answer the bell, that's the most important thing you can ask of them. And when they actually do it, it means the most. Like Connor McDavid went scoring that game-winning goal last night. That's it. That's all you can ask from the guy. Yeah. He came when it mattered, and the Oilers have my vote for the cup. I would love to see McDavid get his first. Bring the cup back to Canada. I think I would love nothing more, mainly because I hate the Panthers, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah,
same, Jerry, same.
It was something. His goal last night, Connor McDavid's goal, and then he had that assist too on the second goal by Zach Hyman, where he just was able to thread the needle a little bit and get that puck over to Hyman. And he goes top shelf on Ottinger, who just looked like ice cold the last 2 games of the series. Aaron, do you have any thoughts if you're able to talk?
No, I am. Definitely surprised. I think if Vancouver was healthier, I don't think they would have been past Vancouver. But last week we were watching it live when Dallas was coming back. Scored 3 unanswered, so I thought that was going to be a game set match. But you know what? Corey Perry effect. He's been on every team the last 4 years, goes to the Cup, and he won 1-07 with the Ducks. So definitely a key factor. Definitely have some big boys on the defensive front that's gonna help out against this Panthers team in the Cup. But I mean, I'm just glad that Connor McDavid's in the Stanley Cup because he's like the best player in the world, and he hasn't gotten past far the conference finals when they went up against Vegas.
Yeah, I think it's exciting, and if you're the NHL, you're thrilled out your mind that you have your face of the NHL in the Stanley Cup Finals. Not just Connor McDavid, but you're looking at Draisaitl as well. I'd say he's up there with like some of the top players in the National League, and you get Matty Tkachuk too, and Bobrovsky as well. In the in the Stanley Cup Finals, it should be a great matchup. These 2 teams seem to be pretty evenly matched when it comes to the offensive side of things. And I don't want to goaltender side of things. I'd probably say it's more in favor of Florida, but we'll get into more in-depth talk about the Florida Edmonton series in a little bit. Jerry, I hate to what's your thoughts on? We'll talk about the Panthers Rangers series for a little bit here. How you doing?
Yeah, it's funny. I went through all 7 stages of grief.
In 2 days.
The whistle blew, and my girlfriend came out. She's like, "You all right?" I'm like, "I'm fine. It's whatever. It's just a sport. Doesn't matter. It's fine." And then we did Blue Shirts banter 5 minutes after, and I'm sitting here and I'm just talking, and I just got progressively sadder and sadder and sadder and sadder, and it just all hit me like a tidal wave. It's like, whatever. When you want to get down to brass tacks, the better team won here. And we should have known this after. This was literally I don't want to call it a carbon copy of Game 1, but the same team that showed up in Game 1, the same team that was playing pre-All-Star break. This is just how it goes. You watch that Game 6. Nobody wanted to play hockey. Nobody showed up. They weren't playing like it was an elimination game. You literally need to go balls to the wall at all time and do everything you can, throwing everything you can at the net to possibly make sure you win that game. They just weren't doing it. Yeah. Bad defense, a lot of questions, mainly coming from me about who's going to be the captain next year, because Lord knows it should not be Jacob Trouba. I think that guy needs to get the hell out of Dodge.
He was not good.
No, not at all. And it's just, Igor is a sweet prince. The man can do no wrong. The guy stood on his head and did everything he possibly could to make sure that we were able to win all the games we were able to. We got some big, bright stars from Alexei Lafreniere, Barclay Goodrow, outshining the, missing milk cart allegation from our man Aaron up top. But, we really needed the Panarins and the Mikas to come out. And not that they were absent the entire time. I think they were just shut down by a really good Panthers defense. And if you look at the statistics here, I saw something on Instagram the other day that showed what the Panthers had. They shut down Kucherov on the Lightning to no goals, no points, or whatever the stat was. They did a number on Pasta in the second round, and then sure enough, they shut down Brett and Mika during this past series. So I think they're just a really good team, man. They're a force to be reckoned with. Hats off to Sergei Bobrovsky. He's a very good goaltender, and he makes those big time saves that not a lot of goalies are going to. Not that Freddie Anderson was, or even Charlie Lindgren. It's just, I think he's. I always said on Blue Shirts Banter after each game, Bobrovsky's going to be the best goaltender we would have faced. I think he's the best last remaining goaltender, and I think as much as I want to see the Oilers win the Cup, this is going to be a tough series, and I think the Panthers, I want to give them their flowers because they are a very good hockey team despite their trash bag fans jumping into our streams, just chirping me to no end. No end. They were ruthless. And but yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a good series, man. I think this is something to look forward to. It's not the biggest markets for the NHL, so I'm sure they're not too excited about that. But I guess Edmonton it's historic and it's Canada, so that's huge. But as far as Florida goes, not the largest, but it should be a fun series to watch. Game one is what, the 8th, right? We have until
it's
Friday.
until Saturday.
Yeah. Saturday. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's like the worst traveled Stanley Cup ever. Since Vancouver, Boston.
Yeah.
Oh,
over 4,000 kilometers. I don't know what that is in American, but
it's like 3,000 miles or something like that, right?
Jesus. 3.3 thousand miles and 3,300 miles.
One quick thing I just want to bring up. A little birdie told me, and this infuriates me to no end. A little birdie told me that the New York Rangers decided to bring all their girlfriends and wives down to the trip to Florida. And on the day of Game 6, they were all on the beach, players included, playing volleyball like it was a scene out of Top Gun.
Yeah,
you have an elimination game that day. Dial
Gary,
it.
you and me must have the same birdie. I heard the same thing. I was shocked.
That can't be happening.
No.
That made me so mad.
No, that can't happen. You get the opportunity to go to the Stanley Cup Final, which again it's one of the hardest things to get back to.
Yeah.
If you ever get the opportunity to get to, it's one of the hardest playoffs to get through. Especially if you're going 7 games. That's it's a brutal month and a half.
Yeah. Most of us as fans watching, when our favorite team is in the playoffs, we shut down and we don't shave and we don't take we don't take showers because we're so superstitious. And someone comes to talk to us, stay away from me right now, stay away.
Well,
so
it's funny you bring that up because when the Blues went on their run a couple years ago, I have this raggedy old, I don't think it's over here, this raggedy old 1995 Blues clown jersey. And it's tore up the seams are coming apart and whatnot. And I wore the jersey to one Stanley Cup Finals game, and they won. And I was like, I have to wear this the rest of the time. I cannot wear another jersey besides this raggedy looking, jersey that's probably 25 years old. I have to wear this thing to every. You talk about superstitions. There you go. I mean,
But it goes to show you, why are the Rangers players? These guys, this is the season on the line. You may not get another chance to go to the finals, and you're just gonna play footsie with the misses.
Yeah, I don't get
on the beach. That drives me crazy.
Yeah. Aaron, how you doing after the Game 6 loss?
I was infuriated just because they were lackluster throughout the entire Game 6. They looked like after the first period they were down 5-0, and they weren't. They're down 1-0. Trouba was
doing for that.
Yeah, they were doing. Trouba was doing too much work, and he was doing boneheaded plays. The defense looked scared out of their mind. Nobody besides Matt Rempe actually was trying to be aggressive against this Panthers team. And in spurts, they weren't getting any shots near the net. The third period, they only had 3 or 4. You're not going to win games like that. I mean, Edmonton did last night with 10, but that's not going to happen against the Florida Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we just looked like we were already defeated after the first period, and it infuriated me to no end. Zibanejad looked like crap, even though he was getting his face kicked in the entire series. Kreider was just laughing every time Sam Bennett was hitting him. He didn't even care. Panarin was just being Panarin in the playoffs. He didn't show up like he did in the regular season. And Adam Fox played the worst hero ball I've ever seen. If you're that hurt, don't be the hero. We could have brought up Zach Jones. We could have brought up anybody else, but he wanted to play hero ball and play like absolute hot trash against a very skilled Panthers team.
Yeah. On the positive side, the goaltending is set. Like,
yeah, and we're gonna waste it.
Igor is fantastic.
Yeah, and we're gonna waste it like we did with our last goalie.
Yeah, I saw it was a stat the other day or yesterday. I think I saw it, and I don't remember it all completely anymore, which is why I need to screenshot those kind of things. But it was talk about the Rangers and how they're gonna how they wasted one career goaltender, Hall of Fame goaltender, and they're going to end up wasting another one if they don't figure things out. It's like, well, okay, yeah, I get that, but at the same time, like, sometimes all it takes is one or two little changes, and that could be the difference between going to the Stanley Cup Final and losing in the second round, or not even making the playoffs. You know, it could be the one or two little things that makes. I don't think that, I know I jumped into the chat a little bit the other night after the game with you guys over at Blue Shirts, and I was like, they're talking about blowing it up and whatnot. Like, you can't do that. You can't blow the team up yet. I don't think.
Why
I could
not?
be wrong.
No one wants to show up in the playoffs. I would.
I don't think you can blow it up.
If you don't, if you're not going to contribute, you've been here for at least 4+ years, and you don't want to contribute in the playoffs, you can go. I'm not trying to see us lose to Florida teams in the last 2 years.
Yeah. Jerry, do you have any?
Yeah, I'm on your side. I don't think things should be blown up. The only person I genuinely want out is Jacob Trouba. I think he needs to get far, far away. Send him to Utah. Figure something out. I know he's locked up for a while. I'm into entertaining ideas for Kakko. I saw a couple people talking about maybe Kakko for Zegers straight up. I think that's a fair deal on all accounts.
That'd be good.
I think there's still a lot of room for Kakko to develop, and I just unfortunately don't think the New York market is the one for him. Maybe if you go to Anaheim where there's a little less shine on you, it might be all right.
Might just be the wrong type of system too.
Yeah, definitely. And he's not a bad player. I love him. He's just, this was a tough showing for him during the playoffs, especially when Lap was shining so bright, and I know he got hurt earlier this year, Kakko, but still, I want to see more out of him. I think everyone's running around with, like their head caught on fire to get rid of Artemi Panarin. I think if you want to get rid of Artemi Panarin, I think you were the dumbest person on the face of the earth. I know he doesn't show up in the playoffs, and I get that, but you have to look at it like this. He had four or five game-winning goals in the playoffs this year. Mm-hmm. And not to mention he was present, as opposed to last year during that playoff series against the Devils, he was nowhere to be found. So he's getting better. You have to keep in mind, this is a guy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he never made the playoffs until he got to the Rangers. I could be really wrong about that. I do not think he was on any. Was he on a Chicago playoff team?
No, but I think he was for Columbus.
Oh, was he?
I thought he was in the year Columbus swept.
The Lightning?
Tampa.
No. Well, I'll leave those words then. Never mind.
I think. I don't know, honestly. I don't 100% know.
It makes sense. But still, he's not exactly the most playoff experienced type player. And he's been on a couple deep runs now with the Rangers, but he's still kind of learning in that regard. And
he has 24 playoff appearances.
24 playoff games played.
Yeah. Well,
So that's, do the quick math. That's
he has 12 goals in it.
4. That's quick math. 10. 14,
all I know is that the
7.
Florida Panthers did that
the last 3 years
with their guy and Huberto, probably saying that wrong, and sent him to Calgary to get Chuck, and that went drastically better for them for the Panthers because now Huberdeau isn't doing anything. I mean, we can't move Panarin because of his no trade clause, but I don't know. He's great in the regular season. Don't get me wrong, but hasn't done anything in the playoffs. So
Yeah,
I'll also entertain ideas from Mika. I think maybe Mika could use a shakeup, even though I doubt he wants to go anywhere.
it's just his contract though, $8.5 mil till
it's hard to get rid
2028.
of. It's like Jordan Kyrie's contract.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brandon, what's your thoughts on the series, the Florida Rangers series?
I thought it was a very hard fought series by both teams. Aside from seeing the kind of the performance from New York in Game 6, I kind of agree with Jerry. It seemed like they came out, didn't want to play. They were just it looked like in a way they had pretty much given up in Game 6. Like they pretty much knew they weren't going to be moving on, and you could see it in their play throughout pretty much the whole 6th game. But I will say both goaltenders I thought played very, very well. Shesterkin stood on his head for New York for vast majority of the series. And I mean, even just giving New York props, because I think they are the only team in the last 20 years to be winning the President's Trophy and make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Every other team that has done it has only been getting to the first round or second round and then bailing out. But New York's the only team that I've saw that has actually made it to the Eastern Conference Finals while winning the President's Trophy.
Right.
So I
think the Lightning did
it. Whenever I was looking up the stats for that, it didn't look like they did. I think they were first or second round exit.
The last team to win a Stanley Cup with the President's Trophy was the Chicago
Blackhawks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But you talk about to get to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yes, it was back. I think back in the 90s. I think whenever they made it to the Eastern Conference Final, and then it wasn't until this year that they did it again.
The President's Trophy got to.
Yeah,
interesting. James, while we do a little research on that, what is your thoughts on that, on the Rangers Panthers series?
Well, at the end of the day, the Panthers they're aggressive. They dominate defensively, and they just play a hard-nosed game. And as much as I really want to see the Rangers come out and show their skill, they just didn't have enough at the end. They couldn't take on how hard the Panthers fight to get the goals and get the good plays. They came in so straight in all the time, and the Panthers play a different defensive style. It's like a 3-1-1 defense where they basically log jam the neutral zone. So it's in essence a neutral zone trap from the 90s, but it's changed to work in today's game. Plus, I mean, Tkachuk, Bobrovsky, Barkov, Bennett, they all play with just tenacity no matter what. They headhunt, they go after the guys. And, as much as unfortunately the Rangers just didn't have enough aggressiveness to really do it. They have skill. They have Igor Shesterkin, who is a stud. And, their talent got them as far as possible. But they didn't have the next gear, that aggressive gear they needed to go in there. And really the only guys that showed some form of aggressiveness was, unfortunately, Jacob Trouba, who is not good at it anymore, and Matt Rempe, who plays, 2 minutes every 5 games. So, if the Rangers want to come back to this, they need to drop the idea of the President's Trophy style of play, and they need to get that. They need to find someone, whether it's in free agency, a trade, to give them an aggressive side to play and compete with a team like the Panthers. Because, I mean, no offense, if the Panthers don't win this year, they're going to be in contention for these cups over the next 5 years easy. So that's something that all these teams in the Eastern Conference got to look at, is how tough this team plays, and they're going to have to start mimicking that style to be ready.
Yeah. It's just because there's no state income tax in Florida. That's the reason why they wanted to.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, who in their 20s would be like, oh, so I could make $10 million a year, no state taxes, live in Florida, Miami, for crying out loud. Where
Sunrise, I learned today. It's not the same.
It's closer to Fort Lauderdale than Miami.
Yeah.
Like Miami's here, Fort Lauderdale's here, Sunrise is up here.
Either way, you got the sun, you got the ladies, you got the beach, you got everything. Obviously, the Rangers enjoyed the beach a little too much, apparently. So this just goes to show you that Florida might be the place to be for any free agent.
Florida, Vegas. There's is California one?
I mean, LA has
LA's kind of
they got a lot of they got the tax thing.
True.
So they're not no tax. They're not there. They do have the state tax.
Dallas, they don't have state taxes. So
Interesting.
Our congressmen in Missouri, they have to start changing this.
Yeah.
Just on the basis of we need free agent signings. They got to get rid of the state tax. That's what they got to do.
Whatever works. Whatever works. Yeah.
I'll say it after the stream's over. I found something funny.
I'm sure it is. Let's talk a little bit of we'll jump over to the Stanley Cup final preview here with the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers. You get a wonderful Stanley Cup final matchup between the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers. It's literally a battle of very, very north versus very, very south. I think they're the furthest. Edmonton's the furthest north team, if my geography is correct. Florida's the furthest south team.
I think so.
That makes sense, right? It's cross country. Oh, it's the most miles. Two teams. Is Calgary higher than Edmonton?
Vancouver is farther, I think.
Farther north?
It should be farther
They're
west.
farther west. I think they're the farthest west. And I think Edmonton's north. I think you're right, Brandon. I think north. I think Edmonton is the northernest team.
If you come here for geography, it's not the place to be.
God, no.
Clearly not. Anyways, you get the furthest distance that any two Stanley Cup Stanley Cup Finals has been since Vancouver and Boston back in 2011, I believe. It's been a while. This should be a pretty solid series. You get Edmonton, who comes in with 12 wins, 6 losses. Florida with one less game with 12 wins, 5 losses. Brandon, how much does that one game difference matter at this point of the year?
Sorry, repeat the question.
How much does so Edmonton's played one more game than Florida so far in the playoffs. How much is that going to make a difference, or will it make a difference in the Stanley Cup Finals?
I don't think it'll make that big of a difference, honestly. I feel like both these teams they're dialed to the point that they know what they got to do in order to get there. Obviously, they're in the Stanley Cup final. They've made it past all the teams that they've made it past in order to get to this point. I personally feel like if you've made it through all game sevens, you're going to be a little bit beat down, but you're going to have that. You're going to know that you're going to have that extra gear in order to get to the Stanley Cup final and actually compete in the level that you're going to have to in order to win. So with having only played one extra game more than the Florida Panthers, I don't really see that as an advantage or a crutch really for Edmonton. The only thing, if you look at a lot of their numbers, the only thing that really separates the two teams is their power play. Their penalty kill looked almost identical. Their goals for, their goals against, their time in offensive zone, it all looked relatively similar. The only thing that's really going to separate the two is, like I said, the power play. And the power play for Edmonton is they have a different style of play whenever they're on the power play. Most of the time, most teams have a set way of going about like their structure on the power play. The Edmonton Oilers, it seems like they are all over the place. They confuse the hell out of their opponents, and that's one of the reasons why their power play in the playoffs has been ranked first. I mean, they're 37% on the power play, and I think that's going to be the tipping point, I think, for this series. If the Florida Panthers can stay out of the penalty box, I feel like that will even out the series that much more.
Fair enough. I think that's fair. I think the power play. I agree. I think the power play for the Edmonton Oilers is very good, but I think the power play for the Florida Panthers is also very good. At the same time, Jared, do you think we've seen a little any chippiness in this series? Do you think it's just going to be a kind of star versus star, just kind of boring series?
I wouldn't use the word boring. I will say I thought the Panthers were playing some dirty hockey in places. I feel like
Disciplined series.
For whatever reason, the referees were on their side. Not to point fingers and do whatever. I know it's over, it's done with, whatever. But it's going to be interesting to see if that's going to be the case here, where they're going against literally the poster boy of the NHL. Right. And I don't think it will be. So I don't think they're going to get half as nearly as calls in their favor as they did against the Rangers. But I will say this. I was surprised to see Tkachuk on his best behavior. I know he's a little bit of a rat, and I didn't really have any issues with him during the Rangers series. So I'd be curious to see if he's going to come in and kind of, take a swing at who he has to. But the real person we're going to have to look out I don't know the muscle on Edmonton, but the person that we're going to have to look out for on the Panther side of things is Nico Mikkola. That guy's a piece of shit. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't a piece of shit when he was on the Rangers. I don't think he was a piece of shit when he was on the Blues, but he was just, I don't know what came over him, but he was just throwing his body around with reckless abandon at times where it shouldn't have been happening. So if he lays some wood on McDavid or Draisaitl or something, maybe takes him down when he shouldn't take him down, that could lead to something. Now, correct me. What's the deal with the muscle on Edmonton? Do they have fighters? I feel like they kind of
Kane.
Oh,
yeah. I was gonna say Kane is about the only one that I can think of, and he's not really that much of a fighter.
You could say Bouchard because he's a big guy. I mean, Darnell Nurse is a liability on defense, but I'm pretty sure he can hit some people on the boards.
Connor Brown's been known to be pretty physical. He'll play as needed.
They'll answer the bell is what I'm hearing, which is good. Yes. They're gonna have to.
Yeah, what I did see in the game last night between Edmonton and Dallas is that the game 6 was the chippiest game of the 6 games so far. They were even talking about it, like the announcers were talking about it last night through TNT, and there was a little scrum at one point in the net or around the net, and it was a Jamie Benn starter.
Shock.
Yeah. So, but they were like, this is the first time we've really seen any kind of scrappiness between the two teams after the whistle, after the play is over. Mm-hmm. So when I heard that kind of surprised me with as physical of a game as I thought Dallas played. But apparently they didn't really do that against the Edmonton Oilers, and it's possibly a reason they're not there now. That they've been eliminated. Mm-hmm. So it was just a little shock to me there. Aaron, which goaltender has to be? And I think this is an easy answer, but I could be wrong. Is it Bob or is it Stuart Skinner who has to be that guy for their team? I don't know if Aaron heard me.
I don't know. We lost him.
I don't know. James, what do you think? Stuart Skinner or Bob?
Well, honestly, I'd have to say Skinner's going to have to be the goaltender for them, only because I worry about the Oilers' defense in ways. Darnell Nurse redeemed himself in that last game, but he's been a liability off and on throughout the playoffs.
Right.
And the defense is good, not great, as opposed to as opposed to Florida. They have a much better defense. So Bobrovsky has a little more of a cushion. He's a good goaltender, but he doesn't have to be like playing out of his mind. Whereas Skinner is going to have to stay at this high level that he's been at the last 3 or 4 games for Edmonton. I hope he's got it. I know some people they've interviewed coaches when he was in the minors, how good he was. And, one guy said he's going to win a cup for Edmonton. Just wait and see. You'll see it. I think he is good, but he's got to play above and beyond in order to get this team a cup.
Guys, speaking of that, Sergei Bobrovsky joins us in the chat tonight. So evening, folks. He's like, oh man, Rangers fans just, oh man, I'm sorry. 10-year moments.
Thanks for tuning in, Bob.
Guys. Yeah, we appreciate it. No, anyways, yeah, I think it's going to be the goaltending battle is going to be very interesting between these two teams. You get a I don't want to say an inexperienced versus experienced goaltender matchup. You got Stuart Skinner, who hasn't been playing. He hasn't played at this type of stage. You can admit that. Mm-hmm. Hasn't been here before. Bob's been there. He knows knows what's going on. You kind of have to give him a little bit of a slack, I think, from last year's Stanley Cup Finals, just because of how beat up the Panthers were, at that point in time. So right. I think it's a little bit different of a Panthers team going into this year's Stanley Cup Finals than last year's Stanley Cup Finals. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, we'll see. Brandon, what I don't want to say how important, but Zach Hyman leads the Edmonton Oilers at 14 goals. How important is it that he keeps that going for the Oilers?
I would say it's important. I mean, we've seen Florida go through a lot of teams and shut down a lot of the big offenses that's been in their way so far this offseason. I feel like if Edmonton wants to go far in this series, they're going to have to find a way to, I guess, neutralize their defense from the Florida Panthers, because they have very good ways of shutting down opposing teams' offense. And I feel like if they are able to get around that, and I know Hyman, Draisaitl, they are all very good players at getting behind other opposing teams' defense and getting next to the net for a freaking wicked pass from McDavid to put it in the back of the net. So I feel like if Edmonton is wanting to make it far in the series, they're going to have their big guys ready to go and get sneaky with it.
Yeah, get sneaky with it. Jerry, on the opposite end, so as Brandon just kind of mentioned, the Florida Panthers are pretty good at keeping the top scoring or top point getters from the previous, or the team that they're playing. Yeah. They're able to get them to basically shut down. If they can get the Draisaitl, Hyman, McDavid, those guys to just no productivity at all, how quick is this series?
First of all, I'd be shocked if that happens. There's a fine line between your Nikita Kucherovs, your David Pastrnak's, your Artemi Panarin's, and your Connor McDavid's. There's a very, very fine line. However, if that is so, the one thing, I want to say that would have been the case in New York too, where if you take Artemi Panarin down, we still have Kreider, we still have Mika, whatever, and there's other people to pick up the slack. But the fact of the matter is, the Panthers play the style of hockey that just suffocates you. And you feel it, and you can't get anything moving or going, and it's infuriating to watch. And I mean, they're able to be successful in that sense of the word. I would say it would probably go 6 again. I do think the Oilers will stand a fighting chance just because of how good of a team they really can be. But if the Panthers do show up to play and they come out on top, I think you might get Panthers in 6. My call is for Oilers in 7. I honestly think we're gonna get a classic here. But we'll see with that. The one thing, though, I do think with McDavid that's a little bit different about everybody else's. McDavid can dump the puck in, out skate you to get the puck, and then make a quick little, move and score and, get it deep and do whatever and then get a shot on goal. Whereas other people are just trying to attack you in transition. So I think McDavid's game's a lot more layered compared to, the Kucherovs and the Panarins where, you're going to take this side of my game away. All right, cool. No problem. I'm going to do this. Oh, you're going to take that away from me? All right, word. No problem. Let me pass it to my buddy Leon Draisaitl down there and let him go do all the work. And as we've seen all season long, McDavid's playing very unselfish hockey. He's finally turned on the Jets to kind of put the team on his back a little bit more than he did in the regular season, but he's not afraid to pass the puck and make other things happen for other people. So I think it's going to be easier said than done, but I do think the Panthers can be the team to get it done.
Yeah. I think they got a pretty good chance to do it. We've seen him multiple times now shut down top lines.
It's ridiculous.
I do agree that that's not Connor McDavid's at a different level than some of the guys that they have played, but the fact that they still can do that. And Edmonton behind those three guys, I mean, you can't rely on Corey Perry or Brian Nugent-Hopkins or even Connor Brown to be your lead scorers in the Stanley Cup Finals. So I thought we got a little question here. I'm guessing you're talking third line. 3 lines. So feel about the Oilers. My guess is going to be third line, or just 3 lines. As you know, which is Dylan Holloway, Adam Henrique, and Evander Kane. Brandon, any thoughts?
I mean, Henrique, if I recall, he was one of the guys that they acquired at the deadline, if I am not mistaken. Holloway, I don't really know too much about, and Evander Kane, I mean, he's really good at being a thorn in the side of opposing teams. He knows how to score, but there's been times this season that I've watched Edmonton play, and there's been times where that it just seems like he kind of goes by the wayside. You don't really see him, or you don't really notice him much on the ice. I feel like if that line is able to pick up a little bit of their game, I feel like they can get a little bit of more of an addition. But I don't know that with just how stacked. I mean, that's the top 2 lines are, and then seeing the bottom 2 lines, there's a very big margin between the top 2 and the bottom 2, to the point to where if they're wanting to make it do well in this final, I feel like they're going to need contribution from all 4 lines.
Yeah.
Especially with the depth that Florida has.
Right. But yeah, you again, kind of like what you just talked about, even if they don't, like Florida doesn't shut down Connor McDavid, they can keep Leon Draisaitl and Zach Hyman from scoring and being, productive on their lines. How much can you trust Connor McDavid to basically put the Oilers on his back to win the Stanley Cup? I mean, that's tough to do.
The guy has tremendous hockey sense. I mean, if you watched him a lot through the Dallas series, there was a lot of times a good example of this was going from the first couple games to the last couple games, and just how their game changed from game to game to game. And it just seemed like they went from one style of hockey to another style of hockey, to where McDavid is like, all right, I'm taking this a little bit in my back. And he did for the most part a little bit, but just how he enters the zone at times, and he's so aware of where everybody else on his team is at on the ice.
Yeah.
It almost just from one simple glance of how the other team is pretty much on the back check and how they're pretty much positioning themselves ready for the offense to come into their zone, he's able to make split second decision of what he's wanting to do. And it's mind-boggling at how well he actually makes it look so easy.
Yeah. So did comment back in. So let's talk about the third line compared to Lundell, E2, and Tarasenko. I think I'd probably say they're probably more even than it looks, because you still have Tarasenko is the guy on that third line for Florida that can change things very quickly. If you're the Florida Panthers, I mean, we've seen them do it year after year. Which, by the way, James Brandon, somebody called Tarasenko the greatest player ever for the Blues, and I did the same thing.
Brett Hull would like a word.
I threw up in my mouth. Sorry.
Anyways, but Tarasenko has that mentality to be able to put 2 or 3 goals into the net pretty quickly at the same time. So I don't know. For me, comparing third lines, I think Florida's third line is better than Edmonton's third line.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree.
I would very much agree.
Just because you get Adam Henrique, but he's on the older side of things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Evander Kane's he can score. He can do what Tarasenko does, just not as often as Tarasenko does.
Mm-hmm.
He could put 2 or 3 in the net pretty quickly if he wanted to, but I think he's going to have to be that, like you talked about, that little bit of an instigator for Edmonton to play against the physicality of Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So just our thoughts. As we'll wrap things up here, as we're getting closer to the end of things. We got like 2 weeks till the end of the NHL season, which is crazy, and it's going to come back around pretty quickly.
Yeah,
it always does.
With the draft and everything, it's crazy how quick it turns. The season flips over. But Jerry, give us your final thoughts on the Edmonton Oilers series and what your prediction is. How many games does it go? Who's the winner?
I'm gonna say Oilers in 7. I think we're due here for a nice little back and forth. I think if Edmonton's goaltender shows up, I think they're gonna be pretty evenly matched here. I like to think that the Panthers have the edge as far as depth goes. However, I think the Oilers superstars edge out every inch of the Panthers' depth, and we're gonna see Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl play like 30 minutes a game, and it's gonna be necessary, and it's gonna work, just because they have the sheer stamina to do so. I think I want to see Connor McDavid get his first trophy. I think it's gonna be something that's often, everyone, you always see Crosby's commercial. He's always, that first one's always in the commercial. You see Ovechkin's always in the commercial. It's going to be, I think they're going to win in a classic fashion that is going to be in NHL playoff commercials for years to come.
Yeah. Brandon, what do you think? Your predictions on this Edmonton Florida series?
I've been thinking about this for most of the day because it's going to be a very good series, and I feel like regardless of how this series goes, I feel like with how these teams are both stacked, it's going to go at least probably maybe 6 games, but definitely 7 games, because I feel like if both these teams come out like we know they're going to, it's going to be a very hard-fought series. And to me, it just seems so even in a way that it's hard to make a decision. Yeah. But I feel like I just feel like with how Florida has played and how they've been able to shut so many teams down, I feel like it's going to be Florida in 7.
Okay. So we got an Edmonton at 7, Florida in 7. James?
So here's what I think here. I've got 3 reasons why I'm saying it's going to be the Oilers in 7. Number 1, you've got McDavid and Draisaitl being not only the best players in this series. I mean, bar none, I think they're the 2 best players in the series. But they change the pace of the game. Their team follows them in style and skill. They find ways to just tear through defenses. that, you know what, if Florida wants to put their 3-1-1 style in, they're going to go to the boards and they're going to get around that style. Number two, I think the defense is going to play well enough with Skinner in the pipes to hold true to, even though I think Florida is a great team, I think there's going to be enough of those 1-2 goal games that will favor for Edmonton. And number three, the one thing we have not talked about whatsoever is the lady from Edmonton flashing flashing her boobies to everyone. Like, that is the game changer. I didn't see anybody in Florida do it. They're throwing rats on the ice.
It's going to happen now. Just wait.
This gal is showing Canada and America what it really means to be a hockey fan. So Edmonton at 7. God bless you, lady, whatever your name is. Thank you.
Yeah, it was that was something else when it popped up, and I was scrolling through the other night. I'm like, oh, like, all right, like,
and then no matter what, you keep scrolling, it keeps popping up again and again and again and again, and then you reset Twitter and you're looking again and again and again.
So I'm gonna pull up this. Well, no, I'll give you my prediction. So I'm gonna stick with my guns. I said a couple weeks ago that I think this Edmonton Oilers team is gonna win the Stanley Cup. I think I was reading that question there. Sorry. I think the Edmonton Oilers are gonna win the series. I think it is gonna go 7, and I think we could see, like, just for the funs of it, give me a double overtime game 7.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, yes.
Double overtime game 7. I could see this series having a lot of those kind of overtime games, anyways.
Yes.
With the way these two teams play. Before we go, though, I do have one more question here from Bob himself. So do you agree that McDavid is totally a beast? But what about deep down? Is, like, any thoughts on, I guess, Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Forsland? I think Forsland had a heck of a series. I think he's had a heck of a playoff so far.
I think Ekman-Larsson's been phenomenal.
Right? Yeah, I think they've both been really, really good. For Ekman-Larsson to be able to kind of pull himself out of where he was, I guess, with Arizona and whatnot, and not necessarily playing great stuff in, was it Ottawa? Is that where he went to?
Maybe. I don't remember.
Maybe.
Was it Ottawa? I don't remember off the top of my head. I know he went somewhere after Arizona before he ended up in Florida.
Brandon, I will say this one thing definitely. I think the first two lines of both teams are pretty even for the most part. They all have their, intricacies of their styles. I do think what will make or break a lot of this, which could benefit the Panthers if lines 3 and 4 come at it.
Right.
I do agree. I think those first two lines are going to play a lot, but the matchups are going to be so key. And this is going to go down to, how quick and efficient are the coaches paying attention to when they got to get certain guys out there against a certain matchup. So, this will not just be a fight in the ice. It's going to be a fight on the benches. Like, these coaches, Knobloch and Maurice, they're hitting the right buttons everywhere, and we'll see what happens. This is going to be a great series.
Yep.
I was trying to see. Oh, he's in Vancouver. My bad. Vancouver. This is where he was. Not Ottawa. Ekman-Larsson.
Okay.
So just want to correct myself. Correct myself there. Not Ottawa. Vancouver before he went to Florida. Now I think Forsling's had a really good series as well. I thought they both for being a guy who was on the edge of not being in the NHL anymore, and Forsling, I think he's done a very solid job. Being a productive member of the Florida Panthers there as well. Guys, it's gonna be a long week and a half. I don't know if what kind of other plans you guys have, but maybe
Brandon's bleeding out in front of us right now.
Kidding.
So
Brandon won't be on the show next week. He's
just shove it up there. You got this.
Still going to
Be okay.
Next week I'm hoping to be, but the following week is a no-go for me. I'm going to be gone the whole week of the 17th through the 23rd. I'm going to be gone.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in. We do appreciate everybody who watches and chimes into the show. It's much appreciated. It makes things a lot more entertaining for us too sometimes. Maybe you'll see us again once the Stanley Cup Finals start in another like 6 days, because they decided to give the teams a whole week off before Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals on Saturday.
Mhm.
So maybe you'll see some post game thoughts and whatnot.
I'm liking it.
Come the Stanley Cup Finals. So again, thanks for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you do that as well. We really do appreciate it. Jared, is there any blue shirt stuff going on, or are you guys?
No, we're chilling for now. We are taking a little bit of time to decompress, but we will be doing a postseason roundup, whatever. So be on the lookout for that.
Nice.
Yeah, and you find that over at let's see if I can do it right. CPNY Sports.
Yep.
Got it. I'm getting good at this, man. I'm getting good at this. You can check all the other content from Talking to Gridiron, right at the 5 hole. We got the 7th inning stretch, 314 Sports Show, all kinds of stuff right here on the Variety Sports Network. So we will see you, I guess, next Monday for the next episode of the 5 hole.
Yes, sir.